This episode of the Mega Meeple is brought to you by our supporters over at PodPledge. Welcome back to the Mega Meeple, the show all about gamers and games that bring them together. This is episode 41, and actually this weekend, as we mentioned last weekend, this weekend we're going to have two episodes coming out. It'll be this one, episode 41, and then we'll release also episode 42, which is like a special edition, but that one... It'll be one interview that we had with the people of Agents of Mayhem successful Kickstarter. And I like, with these episodes, I like to try to keep them under an hour or so. And also I want to showcase one guest per episode. That way when, especially with Kickstarters or new games, guest wants to share the podcast with their social media outlets. They don't have to sort of like share the spotlight with someone else. They could have one episode that's dedicated strictly to their interview. But with designers of Agents of Mayhem, that interview, we talked about so many things, and the interview was well over an hour long. Rather than uploading a episode that's between our content and then the guest interview, would probably be like a good 2.5 hours long or so. We're just going to have episode 42 just be strictly the interview with the designers of Agents of Mayhem. And again, it's Ova and Gunther Eichert. So what's been going on this past week? Well, some of the Kickstarters have started to come into the Mega Meeple. We recently got Zombicide Green Horde, and I was able to play it once. Got a group of people together, and I kind of did the old bait and switch. But what I also did was I introduced a few elements from Black Plague into it. So we basically played Zombicide Black Horde. And again, we've only played the first quest, which is basically you have 6 objectives, and 4 of them I think are Dragon Bile. My first impressions on that right now, and we've only played the first quest, and albeit that we've kind of mixed in Black Plague. But as far as just Green Horde in and of itself, I think it's cool. We got the trebuchet introduced. It seemed like somebody always got stuck with the trebuchet duty, because it pretty much takes an entire turn, unless you have +1 action. It takes an entire turn to fire the thing, or move the thing if you want to move it. And if you got one person that's just pretty much, that's all they're doing on their turn, that could get pretty boring for them real quick. So I don't know if there are other quests in the book, because again, we only played the quest 1. I have not even bothered to look at the other quests yet. But I don't know if there's other quests that the scenarios would, some other strategy or style of playing. Also, my number one main complaint about Green Horde is those damn minis. Specifically the Orc Runners and the Walkers. It is very difficult to tell the difference between those two. With the Orc Runners and Orc Walkers, they look so much alike because they're all just kind of like standing there. When you got half a dozen or so zombies on a zone or on the board, it's hard to be able to just look at the board and tell exactly right away, okay, this guy's an Orc Walker, this guy's an Orc Runner. You could easily do that with the Black Plague miniatures, but not so much with the Green Horde. In fact, the only way that I could really tell them apart is the Walkers are a little bit more beefed up, more muscular, and the Runners are thinner. But again, their stance is they're all just standing there. I don't see any reason whatsoever why Simon could not have made the orc runners posed in such a way like the Black Plague, that they're actually in a pose of running rather than just standing there or leaning over a little bit. That's ridiculous. So that's one thing. That's a con I have with the game. Don't care for that at all. Also, this past week I got my two Kickstarters of Elder Dice, and also my Kickstarter of City of Kings. And oddly enough, the timing, how it worked out was the day that I was interviewing Frank West, the designer of City of Kings, was the same day that I received City of Kings Kickstarter. So that played out pretty wild, considering that we had scheduled that interview well a month in advance, and it just kind of fell on the same day. This past week also, I attended a gaming event with the Queen City Gaming Club, and that was pretty cool. We had a good number turnout, played a few games. Early on, as people were still trickling in and we were waiting for more people to show up, I got to play test a game that one of the members there was designing. It was sort of a cross between Codenames and Dixit, and that was pretty cool. We got to play test that, give them some feedback. I also got to play a game called Istanbul by AEG, and that was pretty cool. I never played it before, didn't know much about it, but it was pretty easy to learn, real easy to pick up, and I came within, I think, maybe 2 turns of winning, and somebody got their final gem, and so I came in a close second, but that was a lot of fun. And then another group started playing Battlestar Galactica. We had maybe like an hour and 20 minutes or so left in the event before they kicked us out of the room. So I brought my copy of Stop Thief there, and me and about 2 other players got together, and I taught that game, and we played that. Also talked to one of the organizers there. We're going to see about having him on as a guest on a future episode. Those of you in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, you probably heard of Queen City Gaming Club, but also for all of our listeners everywhere else, if you don't have a gaming club in your area, I think the host of the Queen City Gaming Club can offer a lot of insight and advice on how to be able to start your own gaming club in your area if you don't already have one. So we'll see about we're going to see about scheduling him to be on the show. So look forward to that in a future episode. Some other future guests that we have coming up, and my God, we have a lot. I've been busy interviewing quite a few people. Like I said, we got Frank West from City of Kings. We got Clarion Studio for the game Henchman. We got Brett Sobel for the Reckoners. Kurt and Emily Dennison for Gearworks. Then we got, I think, coming up next week, actually, we have Lethal Chicken for the game What the Film. We have the creator and designer of Chronicles of Crime, which is a cool virtual reality, augmented reality board game, wildly successful on Kickstarter, so you gotta check that out. So those are some of the guests that's been coming up in the future episodes. Now, speaking of future episodes, we are approaching our 1-year anniversary as a podcast, which just happens to fall on the same weekend as our 50th episode. So first of all, we just want to say thank you to all of you who have subscribed and listened to our podcast, whether you've been with us from the very beginning or you've come on later on. But we thank you for listening and spreading the word about our episodes and podcast. And our way of saying thanks to all of you is we're going to have a giveaway. And I think we nailed it down to maybe 3 games right now, and we just got to decide which one we're going to give away. But I'm sure that it will tie in with a podcast. But this is where you guys come in. We need your help. We're having a giveaway to celebrate not only our 50th episode, but our 1-year anniversary as a podcast. But what kind of contest would you guys like? We're open to really anything, but hey, this is the first time we're doing this, so we need your suggestions. So sound off, let us know. Reach out to us to any of our social media outlets or contact us through the webpage. right, welcome back to the Mega Meeple. We have another duo as guest this episode. We're doing a lot of duos the past few episodes. So it just goes to show that collaboration is very, very good and very key in designing board games. But this time we have a game it's currently on Kickstarter called Centrix. And we have Corey Myckan and Richard MacRae. How you guys doing?
Yeah, thank you.
Doing great.
I'm doing well, thanks. Actually, good to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for being a guest on the show. Okay, so you have a game on Kickstarter currently, and it's going on until, and just for the purpose of people listening to this episode, if they happen to listen to this episode months or years down the road, it's on Kickstarter until March 13th of 2018. So if you listen to this episode after that date, you missed it. So, if this Kickstarter is successful, do you guys plan on doing any late pledges or pre-orders or stuff like that for people that may have missed the Kickstarter?
We do, but what we actually ultimately want to do is get the game out through distributor network, starting in North America.
Okay, all right. Well, tell us a little bit about yourselves, how you guys met, and how did you get into gaming?
We have known each other for many, many years. Both played board games. Me as a kid. Corey plays a lot with his kids these days as well. Corey?
Yeah, we've known each other since, I think, 2000, maybe early 2000, and been friends for a long time. Done a lot of different things in between kind of the early 2000s and now, and just through trying to develop something that was trying to develop a game or Richard and I just sat down and kind of sat at his table, and he sat on my front porch. We worked over the last year developing, starting with some drawings and then moving from drawings to cutting out cereal box cut to actually design the 3D board. And I think you'll probably have some pictures of the board, but essentially the game is got 6 levels to it that move, and the board's constantly changing. So Richard and I, over time, just worked together on this, and I think came up with some really compelling and unique, a lot different than anything out there on the market today. And now we're trying to bring it to market. So excited to be on the podcast today and tell you a little bit more about the game, a bit more detail of how to find the game.
The board itself is pretty cool. It's like I said, it's it's about 6 or so levels. It's 3D and very, very colorful. And and actually that's one of the things that I want to talk about in today's episode is you had a cool approach on. I mean, the board is colorful, but for people that are colorblind, you guys had a cool remedy on how to make this game even so people with colorblind can play as well. But first, why don't you tell us how the whole idea of Centrix came to be?
Sure, I'll go ahead with that. I drew 4 circles on a piece of paper and divided them up into little pie shapes and allocated a certain number of those as colors. And I suggested that, well, in some kind of combination log fashion, these would be rings, and somehow you climb to the top. But that sort of was the extent of it. We had no concept for how that mechanic would play out. Corey was really good on pushing that aspect, and we were trying all sorts of things from cards with colors and rolling dice to spin these different levels, to then combining the cards into one, so meaning they would have a number and a color, which would be equivalent to the spinning and the color that your pawn is landing on. And it was actually real slow slugging because there's nothing trivial about development of the game at all, because it would take so long to play. You'd get more or less to the top, and then you'd be throwing cards. And eventually, when we started bringing in designers to help us, so other board game designers, that's when the game shortened up beautifully and became playable. And we really owe a lot of thanks to other designers who have play tested the game and given us tons of feedback. So I guess you could say Centrix is a product of dozens of people.
You did have quite a few people, lend their input and expertise into it, and that's one of the cool things I like about the board game community and the social circles that we have, is that everybody's willing to help each other out and lend a hand, or if there's any way that people could just make the journey easier or at least less bumpy. They're more than willing to give you their time and talents. So you got Board Game Bliss, and even some guys with Snakes and Lattes pitched in, and
401 Games, a lot of play testing with other gamers and friends and family. And the first thing that people would say, they'd walk by the board in our play testing and go, "Wow, that's cool. Can I play that? Let me try that." And they'd sit down, and for some folks, that type of game in that environment might not be the game that they'd normally play. They might play a longer game, a more intensive game, and they sat down and they really liked the game. And encouraging for Richard and I to see that we had something, I think, a bit special, that folks that normally wouldn't, let's say, purchase that game or buy that game or maybe play that game with their friends, they walked away with the notion of, hey, that's something I would love to play with my family, with my friends. And that level of encouragement from the folks really helped us a lot, just from going through, the last year of kind of ups and downs and trying to get the game where it's at today. Just that reassurance from gamers that would say, hey, this is a really, really good game. You just need to get it out there. So that really helped us a lot. Developing a game, as you know, is trying to be completely pragmatic about what works and what doesn't work is important. But when a mechanic is good or someone likes something, how do we make sure we keep that in the game? And that was really helpful from those playtesting sessions. That's
pretty cool. So why don't you give us the rundown on the game mechanics and how everything the dynamics interplay with one another and how it all works?
Yeah, so each player is dealt 3 cards. They are color cards and number cards combined. Numbers 1, 2, or 3. And the colors are one of the 6 on the board. You use those cards to move your pawns on the board. So the color corresponds to the square that you're going to move your pawn to. And the number is basically you turning left or right, turning the ring that your pawn is on left or right once, twice, or 3 squares, and then moving up. So it's kind of unlocking the combination to move your pawn upwards by going sideways, which is takes a little getting used to, but it makes it a little different and fun. Then there's the onboard gameplay that takes place. So you're able to leapfrog over your opponents or over your own pieces, and you can leapfrog infinitely too. So if there are 2 or 3 pawns in front of you, provided you got that color card that you're landing on, the square that you're landing on above those pawns, you can go all the way. If not, you can also bump an opponent, again, if they occupy a square for which you have that color card, and then they bump down twice. So that onboard play makes for a little bit of fun, makes for a little bit of interactivity as well. Ultimately, your game is to get 3 pawns to the top and be first to get there.
And just on the mechanics of that, you know, everyone plays the game different. What we found in all our play tests was some folks like to bump, some folks like to jump. So I found we found it was really interesting that depending on the type of mood folks are in, if they like, I like to bump, Richard likes to jump. So it can make for a really, really fun game. And, people try different strategy. You play the game one way first time, and then you play the game another way the next time. And so it's got a little bit of variability that I think people like in a game. It's not always going to be the same, and but you still have a chance to win the game if you play that certain style. So that's definitely, I think, unique from a game standpoint.
Okay, cool. For a game that is aesthetically colorful as this game here, tell us how you dealt with the making the game more approachable for colorblind people.
Yeah, the underside of the rings are printed with a symbol that is unique to that color. There's a matching symbol on the card, so you can play this game completely without any color, just matching up the iconography that way. So you just flip over the rings, in other words, to play it the other way.
Okay, that's good. Was that a part of feedback or playtesting, or was that part of the design from the beginning?
I always wanted it. That was important to me. I just knew right away that it's a very beautiful, colorful board, but 10% of the world is colorblind, and it's just not cool if they can't play the game, right?
Right.
It's funny, this weekend I walked into a game cafe here in Toronto, brought Centrix with me, and one of the staff came up there, the people that teach others how to play games, and she saw this game. She said, "That's so cool." And I explained, yeah, and that also there's a colorblind feature that allows. She was colorblind. It's very unusual for women colorblind. She was colorblind. She said, "That is so amazing. I'm gonna pledge to that game on Kickstarter," and she did that night actually, which was kind of cool.
That's good. Yeah, and that just really speaks volumes when a designer is aware of some issues or limitations that players may have, like for example in this case, color blindness. That you're really in touch with your players. You're aware of those things, and you're able to keep those things in mind and accommodate the design of the game to make the game just more approachable and playable by as many people as wants, available and wants to play it. So that just speaks volumes as you guys as designers. So that's very much appreciated and recognized.
Thanks.
Yeah. So if you guys don't mind, we have like a little game that we play with our guests. It has really nothing to do much with the game, but it's called the Mega Meeple Rapid Fire Round. And there's no timer or anything, but it just gives our listeners just a glimpse into the personalities of our guests and what kind of things they like. So basically, I'll rattle off two things to you, and if you could just pick one, whichever one you prefer. Alrighty?
Ready.
Okay.
Okay. Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Vanilla.
All right. D&D or Pathfinder?
Pathfinder.
Pathfinder.
All right. Baseball or football?
Football.
Ooh, that is tough.
Flip a coin.
Football.
Okay. Here's another tough one.
Well, I thought you were going to ask us hockey because we're from Canada. So.
Money or fame?
Fame.
Fame.
Okay. And lastly, time travel into the future or time travel into the past?
Oh, I'll go with the future, man.
Yeah, maybe the past.
All right. Okay. Well, Richard, Corey, thank you so much. And looks like you got a really good game here on Kickstarter. But if people want to find out more about that game and or even about you guys, where can they go?
Yeah, Centrix Game is the URL. It's also the handle for Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So Centrix Game gets you there. And Kickstarter itself, of course, just type in Centrix. CENTRIX.
Yeah, and we're running till March 13th, as you mentioned. So get on there now. Once your viewers or once your listeners listen to the podcast and back us so we can get this game out. We think that folks will really enjoy the game.
Like I said, it's one of these beautiful games, but it also has a lot of things going for it. So it's not just a pretty game just to look pretty. It has some pretty good dynamics, gameplay with it. The personality matches the looks, I guess we could say. So,
thank you for the compliment.
Yeah, thanks.
So, and again, we'll put all those links to those things in the show notes of this episode. Well, Richard, Corey, thank you so much for being a guest on the show, and good luck on that Kickstarter. Looks like a great game.
Hey, thank you so much, and thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to the Mega Meeple. Stay tuned next week as our guests will be Alex MacRae and Mike Schleiko for What the Film Party Game. It's a hilarious card game. If you're sick and tired of Cards Against Humanity, here is a party social game that you could play that will fill that void. It's a hilarious game and equally funny interview, so stay tuned for that next week. If you're a game designer and you'd like to come on the podcast and be a guest on the show to talk about your game, you can contact us at megameeple@outlook.com. Now, if you like the show, if you could go ahead to iTunes and subscribe if you haven't already, and leave us some 5-star love-in, give us a good review. Really appreciate it very much. And we are now on Spotify, so if you want to listen to the episodes there. And if you like the show, spread the word, tell your friends about it. It really helps out. And if you really like the show, you go to our Pod Pledge page and donate $1 or so a month. It really helps out with the hosting costs and such. And also we have other tiers of support as well. So you get, depending on what tier you support, you get some swag, get exclusive content, shows and episodes not available to the public. And if you're feeling really generous, you could actually come on as a co-host on an episode and talk about anything you want with gaming. And banter back and forth with me and Al. Great way to get your 15 minutes of fame. So all the links to those are found on the social media page on our website, www.themegameeple.com. So thank you so much for listening, and we hope you will join us next week. Until then, this is Tom saying, see you at the gaming table.